Don't go anywhere. There's more monsters dying to meet you. On AMC's Monsterfest, the classics come alive.
Hey, I'm not made of money. Just paying for my prescriptions. I get a little queasy.
Then it was like Eckerd to the rescue.
Well, I called their number, and
for just $7.50 a month, I joined the Eckerd healthcare discount plan.
60-day money-back guarantee? Why not?
Up to 30% off of prescriptions.
Whoa!
it's not insurance, no forms, no caps.
The whole family is covered. You get this Eckerd healthcare discount plan card, and you just sort of wave it like a magic wand. We save about $100 a month.
Well, not only prescriptions, but I got half off my glasses.
50% off.
Oh, and don't forget dental, too.
Oh, yeah.
I even saved on my hearing aid.
It's like a coupon I can just keep using.
With all that I've saved, I'll get a new TV.
I'm taking my fishing trip.
New bridge work.
Get the card that gets you discounts. Call 1-800-237-1400 and try the Eckerd Healthcare discount plan risk-free.
When I think of all the money I've saved,
It's a beautiful thing.
Hey, sister, what do you call that exercise you get?
It's rock and roll, brother, and we're rocking tonight.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock.
Rock and roll on American Pop this November.
We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Put your strap on.
With Bill Haley in the comics. Little Richard. Chuck Berry.
Gone like a cool.
Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers. And much, much more. Rock and roll will never die. It's certainly alive and kicking all this month on AMC's American Pop. Saturday nights at 10 Eastern. And the web's always rocking at ampop.com.
Later, man, later. I'm gone now. I don't dig nothing.
This year, AMC's Monsterfest features one of the greatest collections of classic monsters ever. But we'll let the stars speak for themselves. Wow! AMC's Monsterfest. The classics come alive. The 5-day marathon continues.
There is a house that is hidden deep in a canyon in Beverly Hills. It was once the home of Jean Harlow, one of the most glamorous movie stars of all time. Sometimes tourists show up there, vying to get a glimpse, not only because it was Harlow's home, but because the house is steeped with tales of murder, mystery, and ghosts.
It's awful to say that a house is haunted or has bad vibrations because it's only a building, you know, sticks, stones. And yet some houses, it's marked all over them. And this house was one.
A ghost or a spirit remains if, in fact, there is some unfinished business, something incomplete, if the death has been traumatic, tragic, sudden, unexpected, or if they are holding on to something here that they have not yet been taught to let go of.
He was called Hollywood's father confessor. As the assistant to Irving Thalberg, Paul Bern was one of the most powerful men in 1920s Hollywood. He could make or break a career with a wave of his hand. But even with that, he was best known for his brief but highly public marriage to Jean Harlow.
This house behind me, the home of Jean Harlow and Paul Bern, has a fascinating history of murder, sadness, mystery, you name it. This house has it in spades. Paul Bern gave the house to Miss Harlow as a wedding gift the day they were married.
Jean Harlow was Hollywood's original blonde bombshell. Her sex symbol status made her a top box office draw in 1930. Those that knew her said she didn't have an enemy in all of Hollywood.
In fact, her nickname was the Baby. And for a person who emulated sex appeal, she also emulated a certain naivete and innocence that was very charming and endearing to both men and women and made her an instant and popular success.
Jean Harlow and Paul Bern were a mystery couple. She, the drop-dead gorgeous movie star, he, the short, dumpy guy in the suit. The romance between them blossomed when he cast her in the title role of Red-Headed Woman. The whole world watched their fairy tale unfold.
Paul Bern built the house, proposed to Jean Harlow, married her 2 weeks later in 1932. But they had the reception here the next day with all of the gang from MGM, and there were 200 stars, 300 writers. It just went on and on. They all came, all the best. It was a blue ticket day. 2 months later, Paul Bern was dead, a bullet through his head in the upstairs bathroom.
Harlow was away visiting her mother when her husband was discovered dead. Scribbled on a notepad next to the body, a few last words from Paul Bern. Dearest dear, unfortunately, this is the only way to make good the frightful wrong I have done you, and to wipe out my abject humiliation. I love you, Paul. You understand that last night was only a comedy.
Paul Bern's death was deemed a suicide, but many thought it was murder.
New evidence has come out that would show that that note might have even been forged by the studio heads who were trying to cover up any scandal that might involve one of MGM's biggest stars.
Jean Harlow moved out of her doomed honeymoon cottage, and a short time later, she too met with her own untimely death from liver failure at the young age of 26. But the creepy house in the canyon and the curse that was in it lived on.
So many weird things have happened on this property.
A house can be sold 11, 13, 17 times. I think people who buy a house should know what its history is and not just walk into it without knowing that maybe something went on there.
Paul Bern's death was not the last tragedy to play out in the house. Bern was often referred to as a haunted man, and many believe his legacy lives on in his haunted house.
In the years that followed, there were other deaths. A man in the guest quarters put an end to his life. A maid rumored to have hung herself. And then J. Sebring.
Enter J. Sebring. He was known as the hairstylist to the stars, a bon vivant, and a bachelor about town. It was Sebring who was the model for the Warren Beatty character in the 1970s film Shampoo. Sebring bought the Harlow Bern house in 1965 and was said to be intrigued with its legacy of death.
J. Sebring's girlfriend in the 1960s was a very beautiful, beautiful actress, Sharon Tate. When J. Sebring would go away on business, often Sharon Tate would stay there in the house.
One night, while waiting for J. Sebring, she saw an apparition. She couldn't believe her eyes. She thought it was Paul Bern. She'd heard about him. She knew about him. She'd seen pictures of him. In her nervous state, she went to fix herself a drink, and there she saw something that made her blood turn cold.
The vision was of J. Sebring tied to a wooden post, his throat slashed from ear to ear. She was terrified.
Sharon Tate recounted her strange story to writer Dick Kleiner, who was intrigued by the ghostly tale and wrote about it in his nationally syndicated column.
It was all very strange. She was literally terrified. It was one of the strangest stories I'd ever heard in all my years of listening to psychic experiences.
Only a few short years later, both Sharon Tate and J. Sebring were victims in the infamous Manson family murders. Ironically, Sebring was found tied to a wooden post, just as Tate had envisioned it that weird night in the Harlow Bern house.
Now, the question is, what does that all mean? It means that she had a premonition. Was that premonition meant as a warning? If she had acted on it somehow, could she have prevented that terrible tragedy from happening? Or, in fact, was it a premonition, which often happens, of events that are destined?
I haven't been on this property in 20 years. Seems about the same now as it did then. Sort of sad, lost, forgotten. Something's missing, and I guess it always has been with this place. Gives me the willies.
Coming up on AMC's Monsterfest, it's alive, it's alive. Boris Karloff stars in the restored version of the legendary horror classic Frankenstein. Colin Clive is the mad scientist who dares to tamper with life and death by creating a monster out of human body parts. Karloff's compassionate performance and James Whale's chillingly lyrical direction create a masterpiece that's often been imitated but never equaled. Frankenstein is next on AMC's Monsterfest. The classics come alive.
Only one maverick producer dared to turn the novel Peyton Place into a movie. But this explicit story of lost innocence in a small town would pale in comparison to the real stories that unfolded behind the scenes. What kind of dangerous affairs could upstage the lurid tale that shocked a generation?
Abortions, murder, seductions.
Get the backstory on Peyton Place. It's the stories you've never heard about the movies you can't forget. Watch Backstory, the AMC original series, Saturday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern.
Jimmy Stewart, Cary Grant, Gregory Peck. These are the classics. But what about the other classics? The leading men no one dares speak of. These classics didn't sing, didn't dance, didn't even crack a smile. Yet somehow, they always seemed to get the girl.
AMC's Monsterfest, the classics come alive. All day, all fright.
I bid you welcome.
AMC's Monsterfest, the classics come alive.
Welcome back. This is what Universal Studios calls their Court of Miracles set, but it might as easily be called Frankenstein's Village because it was used over and over again in that series of films. Our next AMC Monsterfest feature is the great, grand mammy-jammy of all monster films, Frankenstein. Released in 1931, it was directed by James Whale and starred the incredible Boris Karloff. Now, Karloff's incredible makeup was created by Jack Pierce. Today, it's a well-known part of popular culture, but back then, it was considered so frightening that Karloff had to be kept away from sensitive studio personnel during filming. In fact, co-star Mae Clark was so rattled by the monster costume and makeup that Karloff told her during filming to keep looking at his upstage hand, the hand the camera can't see. During takes, he would wiggle his little finger to remind her that it was just him inside, not a real monster. Kick back, check this out. Frankenstein is next on AMC's Monsterfest.